Alrighty, so if there's one populace in the United States that we should be surveilling, I guess it's the fucking gays now. And I'm not even kidding. That's what we apparently are doing. But first, let's get into the fan art section before we get into the existential terror. This one is from Jubilee Helix. Said a demon slayer Suris probably does stress breathing or something. Stress breathing. Fourth form. Panic attack. As always, thank you for your fan art submissions. If you want your fan art to be shown in a future video, the best way to do so is to drop it into the fan art section of the Discord. With that all said, let's go ahead and get right into the topic. Homeland Security can now spy on LGBTQ people and groups them as threats to U.S. safety. In another reversal of the Biden administration's expansion of federal protections for LGBTQ+ Americans, the Department of Homeland Security has eliminated language in internal documents prohibiting the surveillance of individuals or groups based solely on their sexual orientation or gender identity. Okay, we can now literally go, we're gonna spy on you because we think that you're a chick with a dick. Okay, thanks, United States. Shut the fuck up. I'm glad to know that my FBI agent is going to be staring at me because I am dating a trans woman. 2 weeks ago, the DHS Office of Intelligence and Analysis updated its policy manual to fall in line with President Trump's executive orders excising diversity, equity, and inclusion policies from federal agencies and declaring that there are only two immutable sexes, male and female. The terms sexual orientation and gender identity were added to the list of protected groups and individuals at the direction of the Biden administration, and they have been removed. Language in the manual now reads that open source intelligence collection personnel are prohibited from engaging in intelligence activities based solely on an individual or group's race, ethnicity, sex, religion, country of birth, nationality, or disability. The use of these characteristics is permitted only in combination with other information and where intended and reasonably believed to support one or more intelligence and analysis, national or departmental missions and narrowly focused in support of that mission or those missions. So, what does that mean? In layman's terms, it means that while we cannot discriminate on race, sex, ethnicity, religion, country of birth, nationality, or disability, we can, however, look at somebody's gender identity, and we can look at somebody's promiscuities, and we can look at somebody's attractions. We can look at those. So we can look at people who are gay. We can look at people based on them being trans. We can look at them based on, I don't know, what we think their fetishes might be. And these are all reasons that we are able to begin legally invading their privacy, legally surveilling them 24 hours a day. We are able to do that. This country fucking hates gay people now. It really does. It hates trans people now. Otherwise, you would not do this. Also, Ivala, I don't know how to pronounce that. I am terribly sorry. You can correct me when you have the chance. Thank you for the follow. I greatly appreciate it. Axo says, I hope the FBI likes looking at all the weird stuff the furries do. Look, the FBI is filled with weird furries already. It's not like anything's changing on their part. Eve says, just Eve? Cool. It's a good thing that online I'd call the other Eve I know Arachne. There we go. Problem solved. The Trump administration reversed Biden's executive order facilitating the addition of sexual orientation and gender identity to the intelligence agency's prohibited list on his first day in office. Biden's order, signed on his own first day in office, entitled Preventing and Combating Discrimination on the Basis of Gender, Identity, and Sex Orientation, was hailed by the Human Rights Campaign as the most substantive, wide-ranging executive order concerning sexual orientation and gender identity ever issued by a United States president. Today, millions of Americans can breathe a sigh of relief knowing that their president and their government believe discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity is not only intolerable, but illegal. Of course, that has now changed. The Office of Intelligence and Analysis focuses on domestic intelligence gathering, often involving U.S. citizens and others in the country. It has a long track record of civil liberties and civil rights abuses. Since at least 2016, INA officers have conducted interviews with people held in jails about sufficient constitutional protections, targeted journalists and activists protesting local monuments under the guise of Homeland Security, surveilled racial justice demonstrators, and monitored political views shared by millions of Americans about topics like abortion, government, and elections. The DHS baldly asserts will lead to violence. Okay, so people who talk about abortion and government elections will just lead to violence, I guess, apparently. The group said the following passage of the National Defense Organization Act in 2024. South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem, fuck her, a longtime LGBTQ antagonist, was confirmed as Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security in January. Of course, you put Kristi Noem as Homeland Security to lead, and instantaneously you are going to get shit like this. 110%. 110%. And it's not just our federal government. It's not just our federal government doing this. If it were just our federal government, then, well, that would be terrible, obviously. But you know how a lot of people like arguing that, oh, states' rights this, states' rights that. Well, what happens when our states are also involved in the same type of shit? Well, Iowa has now passed a bill allowing discrimination against trans people. Iowa's Republican-led legislature has voted to remove gender identity from its anti-discrimination laws. The state Senate passed the measure on Thursday with a 35-15 vote along its party lines, and its House did the same thing in a 60-35 vote held the same day. The bill is expected to be signed into law by Governor Kim Reynolds, since she has signed at least 6 other anti-trans laws since her election in 2017. The legislation will remove gender identity as one of the classes protected against discrimination in employment, wages, public accommodations, housing, education, and credit practices. It also redefines the term female and male as exclusively binary and assigned at birth, and reclassifies gender as a synonym for sex that cannot be used as a substitute for gender. As such, Iowa may soon become the first U.S. state to repeal anti-discrimination protections for any class of people. Even if Governor Reynolds vetoes the legislation, the Republican support for the bill in the legislature could override her veto. LGBTQ plus protections were added to the state's anti-discrimination statutes in 2007. Nakibri for 100 bits says, did I ever tell you I hate my governor? You're reading why. All the more reason to get directly involved in your state's politics. Thousands of protesters descended on the Des Moines Capitol to demonstrate against the bill. Following the Senate's passage of the bill, protesters in the Senate gallery began chanting, "Who's next?" Republican support of the bill said that it's necessary to protect women and children from trans women that are threatening their safety and civil rights. When? In what ways are trans women negatively affecting the safety of cis women? Where is that happening at a rate that is high enough to matter and would need legal repercussion? Where? Where is that happening? And how is the existence of trans women a threat to any of you? The only thing the existence of trans women is a threat to is the Republicans' ability to understand their own boners. State Representative Stephen Holt, who introduced the bill, who should definitely have terrible things happen to him, says Democrats don't want to talk about the reality of the erasing of women as a result of gender identity based on feelings being elevated to a protected class status in the Iowa Code. A trans woman existing never did anything negative to anybody. I'm sorry. However, the state Senator Matt Blake said the defeated Democratic amendments, or said, of the defeated Democratic amendments, thank you to the Republicans for making it abundantly clear what the bill is about. This isn't meant to protect anybody. It's not. If it was meant to protect somebody, we would have narrowed the scope of the bill just now. When asked if he was surprised to hear that a majority of trans people face discrimination in numerous areas of public life, Senator Jason Schultz, Republican, the bill's primary Senate sponsor, said, I don't know. I've never thought about it. That's all you should need to hear. That right there is all of the information you need to know about how much Republicans think before they hurt trans people. I didn't think about them being discriminated against. I never thought about it. The level of incompetence this denotes is insane. Yeah, they've never thought about it. You've never thought about it. So let's go ahead and engage in more discrimination. This is like when that piece of shit Mike Winger made his video about the, what was it? The secular argument against being LGBTQ. And just never even realized every argument he was putting forth was his own damn fault. Every argument about increased suicidality, every argument about social stigma, every argument about how far they're able to get in life is literally enhanced every time he opens his mouth about gay or trans people. Chef says Mike Winger? Yeah, no, piece of shit. During her time as governor, Reynolds has signed bills banning trans participation in sports, gender-affirming care, and lessons on LGBTQ issues in classrooms. She is expected to sign this bill, though it may quickly be challenged in court as a possible violation of the U.S. Constitution's Equal Protection Clause, which requires states to treat people equally under the law. Representative Amy Whitechandle, the state's only trans legislator, said that the purpose of Iowa's bill is to erase us from public life and to stigmatize our existence, to make our existence illegal, to force us back into the closet. The authors of this bill wish us every harm. It pains me to be here today, Whitechandle says on Thursday. It pains me to see how the rights of an entire group's people can be so quickly and easily discarded. It pains me to hear the slander and the fear leveled at the trans community, my friends, and my family. People who just want to live their lives, to be themselves and live free of fear. This is a fear that I have known. Senator Bill Dolzer said, told Republican senators on Thursday that the state is going to become the first in the nation to back up on civil rights. You get to carry that honor with you as long as you live because you're going to take the votes to do it. When I go to my grave, I will not have to face that. The bill is part of the Republicans' party's larger assault on trans rights nationwide. President Donald Trump has directed the administration to deny all legal and federal recognition of trans people and to vilify them as deceitful and mentally unstable. To portray trans rights as a threat to women's rights and to oppose gender-affirming care as child mutilation, even though most recipients of gender-affirming care are cisgender. So, isn't it great to know that we live in a nation that is not only going to be ramping up surveillance on LGBTQ people, but is also going to be removing their rights, which there's a reason that I decided to look at these two stories together. When you start removing the protected rights of a class of people, and you start making it easier to discriminate on that class of people, you inevitably cause those people to need to rely on more and more desperate means to get their words across. After all, every single violent riot happens because of an unheard argument that somebody, somewhere, some politician failed to hear. Not every time is that argument a noble one, but oftentimes they are. Oftentimes, you beget violence merely by increasing the discrimination on those people. And then, like I said, this is a self-fulfilling prophecy. You get to increase the surveillance on these groups while also increasing the likelihood that these groups will have to resort to violence. When you do that, you get to say, look, we needed to make sure these violent, terroristic groups were kept under lock and key the whole time. Do you not see the national security risk we are trying to prevent? Republicans get to hide behind that argument while simultaneously creating the villain themselves. Glamourclaw, thank you for following. I don't know how many of you have seen the Star Wars movies, but I'm going to go ahead and talk very briefly about the Phantom Menace. Palpatine's plan in the Phantom Menace is to stir civil unrest, both in the Republic and from people outside the Republic. in order to create a war where he was responsible for the effects of both sides. Ultimately, this led to the consolidation of power in the empire into his hands. So, I want you to remember that, because most of you have probably seen that movie. Consider that for just a moment, and remember, we are talking about a president and a group of people now under him who are fomenting dissent in the general populace and pushing them further and further to a position where they are going to have to get violent to protect themselves, while also increasingly allowing more surveillance and more militarization and sowing more dissent against those same people on the other side. Playing both sides against each other. Now, in Trump's case, this can be used for a variety of things. Trying to get martial law is one of them, but I'm not going to put on the tinfoil hat and say that that's the goal. I don't know what the goal here is, but the end result is the same. A fight between two groups of people stoked entirely by one fucking person. Artemis says, spoilers for the uncultured. It's been long enough. Shamira says, if they don't take the bait, then they will escalate until not taking the bait is more hazardous than taking it. Yep. Generally speaking. That all said, what can we do about this? Well, I'm going to be honest. If I were in Iowa right now, I would be sitting on the Capitol steps. That's what I would be doing. I would be getting an entire group of people together to sit on the Capitol steps and not fucking leave. As many people who have the ability to work from home should be taking laptops with them so that they can functionally work and just camp out there. Basically, gum up the government to the point where it's not able to fucking function. Oh no! People can't get into the actual doors to do their job as a member of the government? That is a damn shame. Maybe they should rethink that fucking bill that they're putting forward. Maybe the people who are literally employees of me, you, and everybody else, because we pay taxes, maybe those people should actually be listening to the words of their constituents. So they do their jobs now, to a degree. To a degree. To a small degree. As it says, yes, let's make Trump feel the ire we feel for him ruining our lives. That would be the move for me. But the only way to do that is by utilizing something like Mobilize, or, you know what? Honestly, there's a danger to that too. I want to keep advocating for things like Mobilize, because I think that they're very, very useful for finding your local groups that are going to be engaging in this kind of behavior. But there is another side of this that I need to warn you all about. And that is that increasingly, as more and more surveillance gets to be put on us as a result of shit like this, it makes organizing more dangerous. So use Mobilize to get your groups together, but then have your discussions verbally. Have your discussions about what to do, where to do it, and how to do it, only ever exclusively verbally. Because if you don't, that can backfire as surveillance increases on us. Paper trails are very important in figuring out who to imprison. Midnight says people have been protesting at the Iowa State Capitol about this. Good. Good. That all said, feels weird to advertise myself at the end of this, but I do still need to do that. If you have not already, please follow the stream over on Twitch and on YouTube. Please consider subscribing to the political channel. Please go check out Fourth Wall and support the channel that way. Please consider going over to my Patreon and supporting me and my independent work that way. Or check out the Magic the Gathering channel, where I talk about things that aren't politics for at least a few minutes every day. That all said, thank you for watching, and insert end of video tagline here. Hey, thanks for making it to the end of the video. I really could not do any of this without all of you. Those of you watching, and especially those of you who support me on Patreon. I wanted to go ahead and take a minute to thank all of you who do that, because with YouTube being what it is these days, I really cannot do this full time without the support from each and every one of you. Those people would be Red Joker, Purple Poundini, Jemshin, Britzkrieg, Jupe the Malignant, Michael, Ravalern, Mabbity Babbity, Astral Frontier, Tales of Atonement, Nixie Chan, Kiri Artemis, Victorian Alchemist, I'm not saying the last part of that, and you know that, Arcton Arclacier, Kiratorian, Dren Hadamata, Jordan M, John L, Lord Bleck, Smiling Game Master, and Fireshard. Thank you so very much. But since you're here, why not go ahead and try watching another one? There should be one that's on the screen right now. And if you are a patron of mine, I wanted to go ahead and thank you again for all of your support. There is still a video you could press though, if you'd like. I would appreciate it just a little bit.